Hi, everyone. Welcome to Buckle Up Podcast. I'm Natalia Earl, and I'm a certified business and life coach that loves talking to people. I'm fascinated by humans and how our brain works. What is it that makes a decision good or bad, and how does that decision ultimately shape our path and destiny? Everyone loves to talk about success, but what about the flip side? How about adversity? Failure is such a big and often necessary part of life, and it's simply unavoidable. So I invite you to join me on this inspiring, honest, unpolished interview show with breathtakingly real conversations that go deep on setbacks and hardships that are part of the puzzle that ultimately lead to growth, discovery of inner greatness, and what makes us resilient. Grab your helmet and buckle up, people. It's going to be a bumpy ride. But what a ride it will be. In this educational episode, I sat down with Stephanie Leal. Stephanie is 30 years young, and she's a certified Reiki healer, womb healer, and a spiritual teacher. Throughout healing her own traumas, she found loads of energy that we carry in our womb that pushed her to want to help women release those traumas and embrace their true selves. Her journey has been a long one, but she's grateful to have the opportunity to help women step into their own power. Is it safe to say that pretty much that all the, I want to say, wiring or a lot of lessons happen to us in our early childhood?
Yes. A lot of our wounds come from the childhood because that inner child isn't healed. So basically, you have to become your inner child's parent and
Mhm.
constantly be parenting yourself. It's a whole lifetime of working on your inner child because the inner child can be from just yesterday.
Right.
So you're constantly working of when as soon as you get that ouch, that hurt from an experience, you have to go sit with and parent yourself.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's very,
When that happens, basically when you go healing certain areas of your life. For
mm,
example, if you have sexual abuse, then you'll have that chapter of like healing that abuse. Then if mommy issues, you'll go through that phase where you're healing the mommy, and you go through the daddy issues, and then from those you either have hatred towards women or hatred towards men, and then you realize that that's the reflection of the relationships that you're getting in. So
mm,
you start going back to, okay, that person goes back to my daddy or back to my mommy. It's a
mhm,
reflection of either one or the other, or sometimes both.
right.
So yeah, takes a
Hmm.
lot. And the self-love journey is not, oh my God, yeah, I love myself. No, it comes with a lot of work, a lot of you being your own parent, a lot of you being there for yourself, a lot of you saying no to other people because it makes you feel worse at the end. So it's a lot of work and dedication, and it could take years, and people don't really understand that. But as you go showing up for yourself, you start to heal those parts of you.
Mm,
And really, someone that doesn't see love is because they lack love within themselves.
yeah.
So someone that's blind and is in a lesson, and for example, is in a relationship and they have a really toxic relationship, is because that person has no love. They think that that is the best that they deserve.
Mm, yeah. So interesting that you say that because you hear so many people, oh, I've put so much time and effort and I deserve this relationship or I need to make it work. Like,
Mhm. They're stuck because their abandonment issue doesn't let them get out of there because they don't want to feel that abandonment. So they
yeah.
rather just have anyone come fill that paper, knowing because there's a part of them that knows that the relationship is not love.
And they still keep fighting for it.
And they still because they're in a lesson until until the boom doesn't happen.
Right. Yeah. And a lot of times I think we jump into relationships so fast because we're trying to fill that void. that we think that another
Yeah.
person can fill it in for us instead of us doing our own work. But that's someone else cannot give you that feeling of
Yeah.
fulfillment.
And again, it's because mind you, when we're little, when we go through certain situations, we don't remember these things. So it gets stored into, some part of the conscious of the brain, but it's not in the present moment. So it's a coping mechanism that you do as a child when you go through a trauma. You don't want to remember. So that child forgets about that. And then you're living these experiences in your adulthood, and you're like, this feeling's very familiar. And you
Right.
don't realize it's coming because it's part of the healing, unless you don't really pay attention and be like, oh shit, that person really is my father, really is my mother. I remember this feeling. Is when you don't realize. And again, a lot of the path I really, when I start to speak about abandonment issue, the person gets very triggered because they say, what are you talking about? My dad and my mom were very present. They were married, they were together. Okay, but that little child can feel abandoned at any moment. Let's say you have a dad that was working and said, and you wanted to play with a toy, and you're calling that dad's, attention, and that's like, no, I'm too busy, I gotta work. That child is feeling abandoned. Or when your child comes to you and, and you don't have time, that's
Yeah,
abandonment. Because that child is feeling that you don't have time for them.
for sure. I tell this to people all the time. No matter how perfect you try to be as a
Yes.
parent, you are going to mess up your child somehow.
I've come to realize that, and boy, that was another hard one. Okay, because I was like, oh, my child's gonna be fucked up no matter what I do.
So, in your opinion, what causes anxiety?
Not being in the present moment.
Mm-hmm.
When you want to control everything, that gives you anxiety because you're constantly like nothing's working the way I want it to, or you're stuck in the past, and then you're thinking about the future. You're not here. You're not centered.
Right. Right. Yeah, for sure. And we're constantly thinking either about past or future, and we can't control any of it.
Yeah. Or
Yeah.
sometimes, like, say you go through a lesson and then you're still trying to fix that one lesson, or go here and do this and do that, but what if I do this? And it's just like, you can run around the circle as many times as you want.
Right.
Like, it is what
Because
it
I
is.
feel like when things happen and shit hits the fan, so to say, we
Yeah,
don't look at it that it was a lesson. We
you
look at
don't.
it that it's a punishment, or why is this happening to me?
But if you're in the present moment, you're able to pick up because you're aware of your wounds, you're aware of who you are. So
Hmm.
then you know why you're attracting those things. So it's
Yeah,
just being constantly there in the present moment, which is hard. I'm gonna
for
say sometimes
sure.
we need to disconnect and go.
Yeah. And I always say this, that all the answers are within us. I feel
Exactly.
like God has put something special inside all of us, right? But
Mhm.
we get so disconnected from our own selves.
Yeah.
And that gives us a time to slow down our mind, our thoughts, our control, letting it go, and just really feeling of, who am I? What's my path? What I'm meant to do on this planet Earth, and ask those questions.
And then once they do, they'll start seeing changes in their
Hmm.
lives. So they'll get rid of that toxic relationship.
Right.
uh, and I don't mean just a man and a woman. Could
But
be
yeah,
siblings, mother,
or work. It could be a professional
work.
relationship.
Yeah. They end up getting fired or they leave,
Hmm.
and then
Yeah,
they
that
start like going on the path of happiness and being okay with where you're at in your life.